Yo, it's your boy Logos, and I'm really excited to do this reaction. The Second Punic War is one of my favorite wars to study, there with Caesar's Civil War and Caesar's campaign in Gaul. Also up there with Belisarius retaking the rest of the Roman Empire, Heraclius, and many other ones. Oh yeah, and I can't help but mention Napoleon and his wars against the coalition, up until the point he got involved in Spain, got bogged down in Russia, and it all just fell apart. But I love any type of war. We can study the tactics. Oftentimes it's just head-to-head warfare, but when you have maneuvering, you have trickery, when you have people using their environment to their benefit, you can see how great a tactician or general somebody really is. And on both sides you have that. You have Hannibal going across the Alps and all the other maneuvers he did while he was in Italy. You also have Scipio Africanus. Also at the same time you have Fabian. As much as the people at the time that he was doing his strategy gave him shit for not fighting head to head. Even if they lost multiple battles, I can't help but just feel very empathetic for him and also have some respect for him for sticking to his guns and doing what the best thing was for Rome. Not for himself, not for the people that didn't even fight battles or had any generalship experience, but what he saw was the best thing to do for Rome. If it wasn't for him, Rome probably would have fell. And this is funny too, because I love Rome so much, but this is the only war I actually find myself rooting against Rome. I want Hannibal to go and march on Rome, even though I know it doesn't happen. The underdog tale in this, you just can't help but root for it. And I kind of see Hannibal as an underdog, even though Carthage is so massive of an empire, even bigger than Rome at this point. But the fact that he was up against Rome and Italy, far away from reinforcements, it was mostly a family affair, like in terms of like the other generals he had to rely upon. I just can't help but feel for Hannibal. Let's get into this reaction video. I'm really excited.
All right, our beloved mercenaries. Let's hear it. Okay, thank you one and all for your hard work fighting in the First Punic War. Would have been nice if you'd won, maybe tried a little harder, but this isn't the finger-pointing convention. I know you all have one thing on your minds. Hey, when are we all getting paid? Remember you lost your... Okay. Jim, why don't you tell them? I'm not telling them, you tell them. Ugh. Look, you're not getting paid. What? We lost the First Punic War and owe the Romans a ton of reparations. Of course we can't pay you in full. Let's burn this place to the ground!
And just think about how idiotic that is. You're an empire that doesn't rely on your own armies. You have to rely on mercenaries. So the same military that you had to buy to fight for you, you're not going to tell them, I can't pay you for the war that you already fought. And to be honest, from my understanding, my memory, it wasn't the fault of the mercenaries or Hannibal's father, Hamilcar, why they lost. It was once again more because of the Carthage government, and they didn't have the backbone to keep fighting the war. So at the same time, you're going to do all those things and then not pay the only military that you have? You really are idiots. Who's going to save you now that you're under hostage when they start to march on Carthage and want to burn it to the ground to get their money back? Idiots. But of course, it's senators and people that won't feel the consequences, at least immediately, compared to everybody else. It's those people that make idiotic decisions, and the rest of the population has to suffer for it.
Hey! Don't burn this place to the ground. Come on, fellas. Will killing us really make you feel better about your money? Yes. Way
Take
to
it
go,
slow.
sir. Shut up, Jim. You're fired. I guess that makes two of us. Huh?
And I think, I could be wrong, let me know if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but I think it's only two guys that make these videos. It's like two brothers. So no wonder it takes them so long to do it because only two people. But the animation, the jokes, the actual history itself is always so good. And that's why me and like millions of people immediately go and check out their stuff when they drop content. It's always top notch.
In the aftermath of the First Punic War, Carthage's disgruntled mercenaries, left unpaid for all their hard work, revolted, and Carthage found itself caught up in an extremely destructive mercenary war. The panicked Carthaginians hired more mercenaries to fight the mercenaries they couldn't afford to pay, and
Idiots.
Carthage came dangerously close to collapse. All the while,
It's so funny. And I don't know the exact details, but I'm willing to bet the same senators that said, I can't pay you guys after you fought a war for me, somehow, some way came up with some money that they didn't want to give away in the first place to pay off these other mercenaries. Just people being stupid and selfish and think they can screw over people without getting any consequences. Because of that, you almost lose your empire before you lose it to Rome. And Rome, I don't know their knowledge of everything that's going on in Carthage after the war, but Rome doesn't really like if they did know, because they have their own social war and socii back in that time, or in Latin it meant allies, and there was a war of the Latin allies. So other cities or other regions within Italy and surrounding regions, some of them revolted because of citizenship, want to be treated just like, actual Romans born or from Rome. And the senators and the people in Rome didn't want that to happen because of voting rights, because of influence and power, because of many different things. And that led to civil wars. That led to the Gracchi brothers being killed. That led to Drusus being killed. And that led to one other guy. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. It's crazy. How many times I listened to Dan Carlin, his podcast, talking about it, but I can't remember the last guy's name. But all these different guys who try to play a role to make the state of Rome and all its territory, all of its territory better, they end up getting killed and assassinated by high-ranking senators because they were afraid of losing their power and a king being established.
while, across the water, there was Rome. Ha! Look at those morons. We just kicked their ass in the First Punic War, and now their own mercenaries are revolting. Haha. Yeah. Wait, First Punic War? You mean there's gonna be a second one? Well, we're definitely taking advantage of this situation. So almost certainly, yes. The Romans did in fact take advantage of the situation. Amongst the chaos, rebels on the Carthaginian island of Sardinia sent out a cry for help to Rome. Hot diggity dog, said the Romans. That's free real estate. And so in they went. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's our island. Get the hell off. Hey, they requested our help. We're simply helping. Oh, no, you don't. Look, we're sending our own army to deal with the rebels, okay? But just to be clear, we're not trying to start a fight with you, so, don't declare war on us or anything. War! We surrender! Great. And as part of the peace treaty, we get to keep these islands. No! The Carthaginians.
It's kind of funny though, because when Rome got sacked the first time by barbarians, they got cheated out the deal, and that famous quote, "Woe to the vanquished," I think it was, yeah, I'm probably not gonna get it right. Now I'm just saying it in English, but "Woe to the vanquished," that was said to the Romans because the guy threw his sword on the scales when they were trying to measure up how much gold the Romans would give to the barbarians to get them to leave the city of Rome. So people, empires, whoever, individuals too, take advantage of different situations when they're finally in their benefit. It's just always funny how history repeats itself, and certain things that happen to different empires happen at different timelines, even if they interact with each other, even if they could learn from each other. Oftentimes, even now, we think it's somebody else's problem, and that can't possibly happen to us here. And then that's when you get fucked up.
Carthaginians were hopping mad. As if their humiliating loss in the First Punic War wasn't bad enough, the Romans now took advantage of their mercenary problem and stole their islands. This shocking land grab was pretty hard to justify, even by Roman standards. Additionally, the Romans now demanded Carthage pay them even more money on top of what was already owed. If Rome was trying to make Carthage as mad as possible, they were doing a fantastic job.
Like I just said, just like they did, just like how they suffered from the barbarians, raising up the prices of how much they would owe to maintain peace. It's all about who's in power at the moment, or who has a stronger army at that moment.
Seeds of a second Punic War were being sown, and they were being watered with Carthaginian tears. Resentment in Carthage only continued to grow. Eventually, Carthage solved their mercenary problem thanks to Carthaginian military genius and hero of the First Punic War, Hamilcar Barca. He sorted those naughty mercenaries out with some good old-fashioned atrocities, and the destructive mercenary war was over. Still, all was not well in Carthage. Mere decades ago, they were the top dogs in the Western Mediterranean. Now, after the crushing defeat in the First Punic War and a huge bill to pay the Romans, Carthage was well and truly under Rome's thumb. What on earth were they supposed to do? If they wanted any chance at regaining their former strength, there was one thing they needed now, more than anything: money. But as long as they owed Rome $1 bazillion, there was nothing they could do. Fortunately for them, amongst their ranks, there was one big hunk of a man with one big clump of a brain. Me, Hamilcar Barca! Yes! Wait, why do you all have the exact same voice? I have it too! That's right. Hero of the First Punic War, greatest general alive, and the poster above my bed. Hamilcar Barca had an idea. All right, we need money? Well, I've got one word for you: Spain. An area filled with lucrative silver mines, from which the silver would flow like a river, and our pockets would be stuffed, like Tony's mother at a buffet. Hey! So here's my proposal. You send me with an army to Spain. I'll expand our territory, get those silver mines up and running, and we'll be able to pay the Romans back in no time. Okay. But just to check, you're not secretly raising the money to go on a bloodthirsty revenge spree against Rome, are you? Because we can't afford that. Hanno, my dear, I'm simply going to pay them back.
Yeah, that's war.
Well, that wasn't reassuring. Few in Carthage were as bitter about their loss in the first...
Either way, what choice did they have? Like, of course you don't have the money now, but best case scenario, Hamilcar's campaign in Spain is successful. You can get settlers in, you can get your own people in, you can get allies among the local tribes, and you get access to that money and that silver, and maybe you can afford a war with Rome. And maybe if Hannibal got more support from Carthage from the very beginning, maybe the war turned out differently.
Punic War, as Hamilcar Barca, 98% of his brain matter had been reallocated to thoughts of revenge. He was also fed up with the Carthaginian politicians for what he deemed a cowardly betrayal when they surrendered at the end of the last war. And so for Hamilcar, going to Spain meant being able to act independently from the weak Carthaginian government, building his own strength, and then perhaps somewhere down the line, revenge.
Okay, maybe it's just me. And of course, I'm not going to compare the Carthaginians to, the Nazis. But doesn't it sound a little bit similar? Like you have a group of people, the soldiers, well, particular one soldier, the lead general, the lead soldier. He has this deep animosity over a war that he felt they could have won, but they lost because of the government not backing them, and then quitting and having a peace. That leading him to want to build up the military secretly, break the treaty. In this case, it's his sons and not him himself. And then this leads to another huge, ginormous war. And if you want to ask me, maybe outside of China and their wars, I would say this is close as we get to like a world war. Like just amount of people, the size of the territories between the two people. Like, of course, it's not the entire planet, but this is pretty ginormous. And similar to the Second World War, Rome is gonna explode, become an empire eventually, just the way America did. Not in the exact same fashion because, loans and such and so forth, but because of them renting, they're the global power at that time period.
However, he wasn't going to Spain by himself. Hannibal? Yes, father? Would you like to come with me to build an empire in Spain? Oh boy, would I! Barbara, mind if I take our 9-year-old son with me? I want to implant an intense hatred of Rome in him and prepare him for a glorious campaign of vengeance. Just try not to traumatize him, dear. No promises. The young boy Hannibal would accompany his father, watching, learning. Boy, you see that city over there? Yes, father? That is Rome. Do you know what we do to Romans? No, Father. We hate them, Hannibal. We hate them with every fiber of our being. But why, Father? Can't I just play with my Digimons? No, son! They took everything from us. Our land, our wealth, our pride. Those animals.
This is another thing I love about overly simplified. They make history funny, fun, and just straight up entertaining. A lot of people just find history boring. I'm not one of those people, but they can make just any story or any war funny for the average viewer. And I appreciate people like that. That's how I feel about Dan Carlin. That's how I feel about Neil deGrasse Tyson. When he's talking about astrophysics and space. People like that should really, I don't know, get more of a platform, because these type of subjects like history, like science, should be more, I don't know, beloved, understood, put on the pedestal compared to other things we put our attention to, in my opinion.
I'll tear them limb from limb. I'll burn their pathetic city to the ground. Dad? I'm sorry, son. I've just never been so proud. Keep going. I'll slaughter their people. I'll cut off their faces and wear them as masks. I love you, son. After taking Hannibal to the Temple of Baal and having him swear an oath never to be a friend of Rome, off Dad and son went for their lovely beach holiday in Spain. But Spain was already inhabited by many tribespeople, and when Hamilcar suddenly showed up in their territory, they were like, "Hey, who the hell are you? What are you doing here? I'm teaching my son how to become a warrior like me." Aw, well that's sweet. Well then, little guy, let's see what you got.
Damn.
Good boy. As Hamilcar got to work fighting the tribes of Iberia.
You could tell the animation get better. It's just like the small stuff, like the little thought bubble when Hamilcar was stabbing the Roman soldier over and over again. Little stuff like that with the sun just now. It just adds a little bit more nuance and detail and quality. It just makes the rate that you have to do for their content even more worth it. And you can see the time they put into it in every single facet. History, animation, writing, everything is just perfect.
And expanding Carthaginian influence, Hannibal became a child of war, even earning battle scars from a young age. And he grew to become a great military leader himself, making his father very proud. I love you so much, son. Dad, not in front of the enemy. You killed that guy so well, son. The Barcas successfully consolidated Carthaginian power, got those silver mines up and running, and were sending buckets of cash back to a money-starved Carthage. And symbolizing Carthage's regrowing strength, a beautiful new city would eventually be founded in Spain. New Carthage, with a magnificent palace at
Boy, these guys crazy as fuck. Why the fuck is this elephant dancing like that, yo?
founded in Spain. New Carthage, with a magnificent palace at its center. Carthage is back, baby! What in the name of Apollo is going on here? Ah, Romans! Flowing silver mines? Dancing elephants? What are you up to, Hamilcar? I'm simply gathering the money to pay you back. Oh, okay then. Or are you rebuilding strength to go on a bloodthirsty revenge spree? Like I said, Claudius, I'm simply trying to pay you back. Aw, you guys are hugging. No, we're not. I was hugging. Hamilcar had practically carved out a kingdom for himself in Spain, free from the meddling Carthaginian politicians. His power was becoming immense. But Dad, yes, my son? I'm confused. Are we really simply paying the Romans back? We're not gonna go on a bloodthirsty revenge spree? Of course we are. I'm just saying that to get the Romans off our backs. Listen, here's the most important life lesson I have for you. Vengeance is everything. An all-encompassing thirst for vengeance is great for your mental health. Are you still confused? No, I get it now. But what if the Romans find out what we're up to? They won't find out. Why? Well, Hannibal, because I use NordVPN. I'm confused again. Do you like your computer being hacked, all your passwords being stolen, and used to create a fake virtual you who drains your mom's bank account? Me neither. And that's why I use NordVPN. These days, hackers are only getting smarter, while you're only getting dumber. Whether it's convincing phishing attacks, fake Wi-Fi networks, or clicking your aunt's Facebook post that opens the door to a hacker party on your device, you need to protect yourself from online threats with NordVPN.
One thing you said about the online threats that's very true, especially with AI now. They may use, well, not may, they are going to use AI to make these phishing attacks and cybersecurity attacks much more convincing, nuanced, harder to defend against. Within the email thing, they could just use AI to make it look more convincing and less obviously fake. Like we know, like the spam, the errors, spelling marks, all that type of stuff, all that type of things, all those things could be hashed out, or at least not as badly if they use AI or any other technology. So it is something to look out for. Not to mention the deep fakes, Taylor Swift stuff, all that nonsense.
NordVPN allows you to connect to secure servers that encrypt your data and keeps you safe by blocking malicious websites with their threat protection feature. With NordVPN, you can also connect to other territories and take advantage of better deals or content not available in your country. And if you don't like it, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So go to nordvpn.com/oversimplified to get an exclusive deal with a huge discount and 4 extra months. That's nordvpn.com/oversimplified. And as always, you'll be supporting my channel. So thank you. Now, where were we? Oh yeah. Carthaginian tears, a child of war, and the Carthaginian conquest of Spain. The Carthaginian recovery had been staggeringly quick, and Rome was seriously alarmed. But they were also preoccupied with ongoing wars elsewhere, including an expansionist war to the north, where they were enslaving thousands of northern Celts. So for now, to keep Carthage in check, the Romans insisted on a new treaty. See this river? The two sides agreed that everything above it was in Rome's sphere of influence, while beneath it was Carthage. Under no circumstances were the Carthaginians to expand north of that river. But for now, Hamilcar and son were living it up. Well, son, here's to many more years of successful campaigning in Spain. Now, if you'll excuse me, I just have to go fight those guys. See you later, son. I love you.
Damn.
What the? Oh, crap. I drowned? Oh, well. Always remember, son. You are vengeance. Also, delete my browsing history. Hamilcar Barca was tragically ambushed at a river and drowned. His son-in-law, and possibly also his lover, no further questions, took charge for a while. But he too was later assassinated, leaving finally a 26-year-old Hannibal in charge of the Carthaginian armies in Spain. Sources say the men readily accepted him as their leader. He chose to suffer the same hardships as his men. He lived in the same conditions, was often the first into battle and the last one out. And it also helped that he looked a lot like his dad. He had the total respect of his men. If he said jump, they said how high. If he said tuck me in, they said how tight. If he said talk to a girl without peeing your pants, they said that's impossible. Nobody can do that. An army that would follow him anywhere would be crucial for exacting his vengeance against Rome. Hannibal's army had become a strong and loyal fighting force, and that was making a certain nation very uncomfortable. Seeing Carthage re-strengthen so quickly was not something Rome had expected, yet here they were, paying off their debts and expanding their territory. It didn't feel very much like Carthage was under Rome's thumb at all, and Rome wanted to put an end to it. Tensions were strung tighter than your liar's G-string, and all it would take was one incident to trigger all-out war. And in 219 BC, a city in Spain would find itself at the very center of that fateful incident, Saguntum. Remember that treaty declaring everything south of this river to be Carthage's sphere of influence? Well, Saguntum should therefore obviously be Carthaginian, right? Wrong! Saguntum had actually scored itself an informal alliance with Rome after Rome had helped it with an internal dispute. With Carthaginian encroachment, Saguntum began to fear for its independence, and Rome declared itself Saguntum's protector. But this clearly went against the Ebro River Treaty. So what on earth was Rome doing? Were the Saguntines and the Romans truly just BFFs? It's possible. Or was Rome deliberately trying to interfere with Hannibal's Spanish expansion and maintain a staging post for a future war with Carthage? More likely. And Hannibal certainly viewed this Rome-Saguntum alliance as an outrage. Yet another example of Roman arrogance. At first, he left Saguntum alone. But having learnt from his father to hate all things Roman, and having inherited his father's dream of bringing Rome to its knees more and more, Hannibal may have begun to see Saguntum as an opportunity. Could this controversial alliance be just what devilish little Hannibal needed to kickstart a second war with Rome and restore Carthaginian dominance? It's even possible that Rome were also using Saguntum to goad Hannibal into a fight so they could go and kick him out of Spain. And as the two giants began gearing up for round two, the poor people of Saguntum had no idea that they were about to be crushed in the collision. Hey, your alliance with Saguntum is an insult, and we won't stand for it. They're our friends, Hannibal, and if you lay a finger on them, it'll be an act of war. Yeah, Hannibal, back the hell off. War, eh? I was thinking I might just besiege their city and massacre their people. I hope you do, Hannibal. Find out what happens. Yeah, we hope you do, Hannibal. Wait, what? Maybe I will. Go ahead. Kill them all. Okay then. Fine. Okay, guess I'll do just that. Consul, we look forward to it. Consul? You're gonna protect us though, right, Consul? Consul! Oh no! To top it all off, when the Saguntine people made the genius decision of raiding into Carthaginian territory, enough was enough. In an action that was guaranteed to provoke the Romans into war, Hannibal besieged the city. The siege of Saguntum lasted 8 cruel months before Hannibal broke through the city defenses and turned Saguntum into a killing field. It was a massacre. What?
And if you remotely think stuff like this is only, segmented or restricted to ancient times or medieval times, no. Check out Nanking. There's plenty of massacres, plenty of brutality that still goes on within the past 100 years, even going on today. To say human thing is not just a time period thing, but also, it's nice to live in 2024 where people have more values, morals, I guess. This type of thing doesn't happen much. If a war kicked off, maybe, but it's a lot less common. It used to happen all the time in the day. But back in the day, I mean like thousands of years ago. Or hundreds of years ago.
The hell? Tell me I didn't just catch you massacring our friends, the Saguntines. Well, Consul, if you like the Saguntines so much, perhaps you should sug on these nuts. Hearing word of the attack on Saguntum, Rome was understandably in an uproar, and all eyes were now fixated on what would happen next, as Rome sent a delegation to Carthage, led by one of the most highly esteemed Roman senators, Fabius Maximus. He demanded an answer for Hannibal's sins. All right, listen up, scum. You've got a rogue general in Spain attacking a Roman ally. What are we supposed to do about it? Well, there shouldn't have even been a Roman ally in Spain. You're the aggressor here. Hand Hannibal over to us as a criminal so we can punish him severely. No, yes, no, yes. No. Look, I hold in the folds of my toga both peace and war. Which one should I let drop? Whichever one you want. Then I choose.
When he's screaming, yo. He is screaming his fucking ass off. That's another thing about Romans. Roman diplomats, they didn't give a damn at all, man. These senators, they will go up to kings, whoever, and they would, talk shit as if, well, they knew if you attack me, you're basically declaring war on Rome, and you don't want legions on your doorstep. because you're not going to win. So these diplomats were they just didn't care. They didn't care to talk nicely, softly. It was, this is what it is. This is your options. Pick one. I don't give a damn each. I don't give a damn what either choice you make, because either way, I'm going to come out on top. And they will go and talk with a similar type of attitude and these delegations.
The Second Punic War had begun. Pack it up, boys. We've got 'em. We already destroyed these clowns once, and we were the underdogs. Now, we're the overdogs? Hot dogs. Exactly. This is gonna be easy. Here's the plan. Consul Longus, you take your army and sail straight for Carthage.
Like that.
Burn that city to the ground. And Consul Scipio, you just head on over to Iberia and make sure this Hannibal guy doesn't do anything crazy. I mean, what's he gonna do? Cross the Alps?
Yes, that's exactly right.
We're going to what? Cross the Alps. We're going to what? I just told you, Hannibal will freeze to death. Trust me, Jerome. The Romans are expecting us to fight the same way we did last time, passively, taking no initiative. They think it's gonna be easy.
Doesn't this sound like, even this part too, it sounds very similar to the Second World War. Like the Allies was expecting Germany to cross through the not through the Ardennes, but cross through Belgium again, and just followed a similar plan to like the Schlieffen Plan of 1914, or like a smaller variant of it. They didn't expect them to go through and use tanks and armor and, you know, mobile infantry to cut through the forest, and then use that advantage and, you know, put them off guard to follow up on it and then surround them. Hannibal and his crazy idea to go through the Alps is doing the exact same thing to Rome, put them on the back foot, causing them to not really know where he's coming from, and doing something that's completely unexpected and also very risky, similar to the attack or the assault through the Ardennes that Germany did. It's just very, very similar. And I think Hitler, or maybe I think it was Guderian, I think one of the German generals or leading people did study history. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of them did. I think Hitler definitely studied Hannibal, and I think he studied Napoleon too. Definitely Napoleon, because he didn't want to mess up in Russia, similar to Napoleon did. So I definitely think he studied Hannibal too.
So this time, we have to be aggressive. We have to go on the attack. It sickens me to say this, but this time, we have to be a little more Roman. You mean we're gonna take poops and baths together? But I'm insecure about my hairy legs. No, I'm saying this time, we're gonna take the fight to them. Think about it. Rome thinks they're simply going to invade us and win the war. So when they suddenly find themselves being invaded from the north, they'll freak out. Like Tony's mother, when the buffet runs out of shrimp. Hey! I got to admit, it's actually kind of genius. And my hairy legs will insulate me from the cold. That's the spirit. Hannibal, you have my sword, and my spear, and my legs. Ugh. Hannibal's plan, a daring alpine trek to surprise the Romans, was a bold but risky strategy. If it paid off, he could catch the Romans with their pants down, but he could also end up losing a ton of men and supplies in the hostile mountain conditions. Nevertheless, in 218 BC, with a fire in his eyes and some vengeance in his belly, Hannibal brought his force of almost 100,000 men across the Ebro River. They spent months on the road, trekking through the cold, hostile mountain conditions. And when they finally reached the other side, they said, "Hooray! We did it! We crossed the Alps." No, those were the Pyrenees. Those are the Alps.
Sheesh.
After crossing the Pyrenees, the army
Oh
then
my
had to
God.
pass through southern Gaul, a vast territory filled with tribespeople, many of whom were hostile to Hannibal's presence. His journey to the Alps was an ordeal in itself, as he was forced to fight his way through and incurred pretty hefty losses before even reaching the mountains. His plan was almost stopped in its tracks entirely, as the Roman consul Scipio, on his way to Iberia, discovered Hannibal was right on his doorstep. Suddenly, Hannibal's journey became a race, as he rushed to get his massive army across the vast Rhone River before the Romans could intercept him. The crossing was chaotic, with the panicking elephants causing several men to drown. And the first combat of the war occurred when small scouting parties from each side encountered one another. When Scipio finally caught up to Hannibal's position, what he found was an empty Carthaginian camp. Hannibal had slipped through his fingers. The Roman consul Scipio felt the weight of the situation. Quite unbelievably, Hannibal was going to cross the Alps into Italy, and the Romans had no idea where he would emerge. For the first time, a Carthaginian force had the Roman homeland under threat. Scipio sent his men onto Iberia as planned, but he himself rushed home to raise a new army so that if Hannibal survived the crossing, Scipio would be there, waiting. Would you look at that, boys? We're here.
And that's the thing too about ancient warfare. Communication, travel, all that stuff takes a lot of time. So even if you are able to get knowledge of his plans ahead of time, you can't stop him. You now have to worry about getting back home, get in contact with the Senate and the people who will give you permission to raise another army. Because unless he was made, which he couldn't have been, because you had another leading general. I don't know how, I just forgot his name I think Longest, but they had another general. So I highly doubt he was dictator. So he would need permission to raise another army for Italy and get those troops together. They're probably gonna be fresh, non-veterans. At least they had some for previous wars, but who knows? They already have two armies out in the field, one in Sicily and one in Spain. So I would say it's very unlikely they have very good veterans to pull from. They probably got fresh recruits. You have to get them trained, get their equipment together, and hopefully you can figure out where is Hannibal coming down from once he crossed the Alps. So all this type of stuff you have to get ready for and account for when you talk about ancient times. So just because you know where somebody's at and kind of a good idea of their plan doesn't mean you can stop it. Doesn't mean you're able to stop it.
The Alps! Although it is a little later than I expected. Yeah, it's kinda chilly. We'll set up camp here and wait for spring, right? It's way too cold, right? Hannibal?
I knew it. He was a fucking...
Hannibal's famous crossing of the Alps was brutal. It was already autumn, and the men suffered terribly. It was cold. Men would fall off the sides of icy cliffs. They starved. They fell off the sides of icy cliffs. Some sources say they had to eat their pack animals and would finish off dying comrades in order to take their clothes for extra warmth. And then they would fall off the sides of icy cliffs. Imagine an army of 50,000 men with all of their horses, supplies, and 37 elephants.
Remember, he started off with 100,000 when he crossed the river. At this point, he only has 50,000 once he makes it to the Alps. Because you have things like disease, you have the fighting with the tribes, you have men staying behind to secure your supply lines because you got to make sure more tribesmen or Rome itself doesn't attack, and then Hannibal's completely cut off on food, money, reinforcements. So you start off with 100,000, but you quickly lose that due to many different factors. And all this stuff comes into mind when you have war, even modern war. Attrition, that's what this stuff is called. The stuff I named just attrition, that happens too. Not to mention loss of equipment. And this time you worry about losing your helmet, your spear, stuff getting damaged or lost through the cold. I didn't even mention the cold. I was just mentioning things that happens in best case scenarios. When you have a good climate, the cold makes everything worse. You have elephants, you have to feed elephants on these cliffs. I don't think he mentioned it. Yeah, he didn't mention it. But certain parts of this journey through the Alps is very skinny, the route they got to take. So it's hard for the elephants to get across and maneuver. You have to make your lines of your men traveling very skinny, and that makes it last a long time. Not to mention surprise attacks from people living in these alpine regions. It's just very dangerous. And it absolutely makes sense how at this point he's at 50,000. And from my memory, it's going to go lower to that once he makes it to the other side.
Trying to navigate the most hostile mountain range in Europe. And it wasn't just nature that they were up against. Tribespeople lived in the mountains, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. A tribe approached Hannibal and said, "Hey man, geez, that's some nice armor. What is that, gold? Man, I'd really like that armor. Hey boss, they've got food as well. Shut up, be cool." Hey, why don't you let us guide you through this narrow gorge? We're not gonna kill you or nothing. Just walk right on through there. We're not gonna kill you. It's just right this way. We're not gonna kill you. Hannibal's army were forced to fight.
I don't know why I'm just repeating that over and over, killing me, but yo, like, yeah, we definitely gonna kill your ass as soon as we get a chance. And this is probably something Hannibal didn't want to do. He was definitely feeling sus as hell about these people once he probably first interacted with them, because he probably had previous interaction with other tribes in the Alps. I'm not even talking about. We already know he encountered um barbarian tribes and other similar type of tribal people before he got to the Alps. But like, of course, he's gonna be sus. But he probably had no option. He trying to get to the other side as quickly as possible. These people are dying. They're running out of food. People are freezing to death. He's losing elephants. Like, all these things is causing him to be taking chances he probably wouldn't want to take. And it's an obvious trap situation. Even if these people are friendly and didn't attack him, if one side of this gorge or this pass gets blocked for whatever reason, they're pretty screwed. And they're gonna be very vulnerable. And it's gonna take a long time to pull themselves out of that situation, firing or not.
Their way through the gorge as massive boulders rain down on them from above. Some clever reorganization of his line helped them survive, and they were able to fend off the opportunistic tribes. But losses from the constant attacks were heavy. As the journey continued, men who went over the sides would get stuck on the ice sheets below and had to make a grisly choice between starving to death or just getting it over with. When the deeply demoralized army reached the summit and rested for a couple days, Hannibal tried to lift their spirits with a rousing speech. Look, men, down there, it's Rome. These plains stretching out in front of you are bountiful with food to eat and Romans to kill. Move, Bessie! Look, you have just climbed the walls of Rome. The hard part is over. From here on out, it's all downhill. And nobody else will die. Except for them. The rest of us here, no one dies. Starting now. Okay, let's go. Oh, for goodness sake! As it turned out, the descent was as deadly as the way up.
Of course, he making jokes and stuff, but in all seriousness, generals like this who can inspire their men in these type of conditions where people are dying, they're sick, they're freezing, they're probably hungry. Like, it takes a special type of general to be able to pull these people out of that type of situation and have their morale rise up enough to fight and defend themselves and make this whole journey just absolutely just make it not pointless. If these men can't fight, if they lose in their first battle, what's the point of doing this to begin with? So it takes a special general, a special type of person to inspire these men to keep on fighting and keep on going. Not every general can do that, obviously. There's many generals that are incompetent. And there's many generals that may be good at doing this, like inspiring their men, but they're not good as a tactician. Luckily, Hannibal, he was a great tactician, a great strategist, a great inspirational leader, just like Napoleon, just like Julius Caesar. Certain generals, like, as much as I love George Washington, he's a good inspirational leader, but in terms of tactics, he wasn't that good. He would still fall for the same traps over and over again against the British, and that doesn't take away from what he did for the country. But in terms of warfare and in battles, when it comes to tactics, that wasn't his strongest suit. Certain people have different strong suits. Like, I think Ulysses S. Grant, he was more like strategy, making sure everybody had the food, the equipment, all the stuff they needed to fight a war at their peak efficiency. That was something that he was really good at. That was probably one of the best things he was good at. That and strategy, grand strategy. The difference between grand strategy and tactics. Robert E. Lee, he was like a very good tactical general, but in terms of grand strategy, he wasn't the best compared to other generals. It is what it is.
With the cold really starting to set in, the path became even more narrow, and at one point, the men spent 3 days in the freezing cold repairing a collapsed road. When they finally reached the bottom, Hannibal said, "Look, guys, We did it! Well, I thought it went really well. When Hannibal left Spain, he had about 100,000 men. By the time he reached the Italian plains, his numbers had dwindled to about 26,000. He was now caught in enemy territory without a supply line or source of reinforcements.
He lost 3/4 of his army just getting to Italy. He didn't reach Rome yet. He's only at the top of Italy. He lost 3/4 of his men. Attrition was killing him. Fighting the tribesmen, the cold, starvation, sickness, disease, camp fever, all these different types of things, just killing more and more of his men, which is a good reason why he had to start off with 100,000. Probably knew, well, of course he knew. Anybody could have told him, especially when he crossed through the Alps. But even without that, you're not going to end up in front of Rome or at Italy's doorstep with that same amount of people. And it's necessary to have that much for the obvious, inevitable attrition that's going to take place.
And any elephants who had survived to this point were almost certainly traumatized. So what on earth was Hannibal up to? This supposed military genius had just led a starving and weakened army right into enemy territory. Any modern general who lost half their men to mountains would be immediately fired and possibly even depantsed on live TV. Here's the thing. While Hannibal may not have planned on losing quite so many men, he had almost certainly expected considerable losses, and he always had a plan for how to replace them. Need men? Northern Italy was full of men. Big, burly Celtic men. All the men Hannibal would ever need to beat off Rome. These Celts were filled with resentment, having only recently been conquered by Rome. Hannibal hoped to be seen as a liberator, convince the Celts to cut ties with Rome, and instead join him in crushing Rome. That way, he could gain a source of reinforcements and supplies right in Rome's backyard. But sir, in order to win the loyalty of the Celts, we would need to make a seriously favorable impression on them. How do we get them to like us? Kill them. One of Hannibal's first actions in Italy was to obliterate a nearby tribe who would join him. This sent a clear message to all the other tribes. It was his wrath they should fear, not Rome's. The realization that a Carthaginian army had just invaded them must have been shocking for the Romans. But when they looked at this ragtag group broken by the Alps, they couldn't have felt very intimidated. However, Hannibal was now in Italy, and he was about to embark on one of the most astonishing military campaigns in all of human history. The Romans may not have known it yet, but there was now a monster loose in their territory, and he was vying for Roman blood.
Excellent video. I'm going to put out the part 2 soon after this one, so definitely let me know in the comments what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. And definitely, I'll put out the link to the original video in the comments down below or in the description down below. And definitely give them a like. Give them a, I don't know, a comment on their stuff to help with the algorithm for both of our stuff. Because it really does deserve it, if you ask me. They put in the time, they put in the work. You can see the improvement each and every time. And today, or this time, we were lucky enough to get 2 videos instead of just 1. So this took time, this took a lot of effort, and I've been loving it. So definitely let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested to find out. That's it for now. It's your boy Logos, and I'll see you next time. Peace.